Welcome into this episode of the Bass Pro Shop's Fisherman's Handbook. On today's show, host Wade Middleton is going to provide an in-depth breakdown on the importance of the quality of hooks and fishing line that you use, and how specific items are designed to excel when paired with certain techniques. We'll start the show by talking about fishing line, specifically fluorocarbon, and which baits and presentations are best suited for this style of line.
When it comes to fluorocarbon lines, there's a lot of benefits to fluorocarbon. First off, fluorocarbon sinks. Always keep that in mind for any application that you're going to be using. You want a sinking line for. Crankbaits, jerkbaits that are suspending, spinner baits, I like it in those types of situations. My chatterbaits, chatterbomb type styles, swim baits. All of those. I mean, I probably go to fluorocarbon 85% of the time on most all those applications. And there are certain times that I even adjust which types of fluorocarbon I use. For instance, there are times I like to crank with the Crank FC line that Sunline has. It has a different set of properties than, say, Sunline Sniper does. But I also always want to keep in mind the seasonal scenario that I'm fishing in, what the fish are doing, why the fish are doing it, and what line is gonna give me the best presentation when I'm fishing. Jerkbaits. You know, jerkbaits are one of those situations where I'm gonna say about 80% of the time I'm throwing fluorocarbon line. I like the sensitivity it gives me, the castability, the durability in a lot of those situations. I like how it will help keep my bait in the strike zone in most situations, especially with suspending ones. But there are times of the year, I gotta tell you, I'll throw a monofilament line because I want my bait to sit up higher in the water column. That's early, right when the fish are just come off the beds and they're chasing those jerkbaits and they're chasing bait fish, I want a shallow water jerkbait that stays high in the water column. Monofilament is my choice then. All the rest of the time, I'm probably gonna be throwing Sunline Sniper fluorocarbon. Finally picked up a mixed stick, started jerking down some drains, and got one to commit and bite. Fatty. Come up here, buddy. Oh boy, he lit it up too. When I throw a crankbait, I'm probably 8 out of 10 times going to be throwing a crankbait on Sunline Sniper or Crank FC. And I choose the line diameter size based on the depth that I'm fishing, the action that I'm intending or wanting to get out of my bait and while I'm fishing. About the majority of the time, I'm probably throwing my mid-depth crankbaits like over hydrilla or in and around grass or down riprap on 10 to 14 pound test. There are times I'll even have the exact same bait on 10 pound on one rod and 14 pound on another to get a foot difference maybe in the depth that it's going to be able to retrieve, how it's going to bounce off those rocks. Not coming up. Nope, it's a bass. I switched, I could see on my live scope down there that most of those fish were in about 7-8 foot of water down closer to those rocks. So I kind of put the jerkbait up for a second. It didn't take long to probably the 15th cast. And you know, this one here, I'm actually throwing 10 pound sniper to really get this little John MD all the way down to where it's ticking those rocks. This is one of my favorite crankbaits, and I like to keep one with about 14 pound test. Boy, he ate it. And one with, you know, one at 10 to give me a little bit more depth and a little bit more action. You know, flipping, there's a lot of things that go into flipping that I think people have to kind of really keep in mind when it comes to line choices. I let the situation dictate which one I'm gonna choose. For instance, on a recent fishing trip, we were over and there's a lot of cattails in the water where we were flipping. The water was fairly clear. The fish really couldn't, there was very few places I felt like the fish could get behind me in the cover. So I chose to flip 20 pound Sunline Sniper in that situation on a jig, a 3/8 ounce jig, one of the Spro CJ flip jigs, basically what it was. That combination I felt like matched everything that I was dealing with. Clear water, not a lot of places for those fish to hide. I felt like the fish were gonna kind of be on the outside of the cover, and I felt like it was a perfect situation. You know, for me, when I'm fishing a flipping or a pitching type scenario, your line is such a key thing. You don't really want to get into this type of a scenario where you're flipping light line, because you're probably flipping into cover around a dock, around grass, around laydowns, bushes, whatever it may be. Therefore, you know, there's nicks and things that they're going to get between you and the fish in a lot of those situations, and you've got to have something to horse them out. I probably still more often than not flip with 20-25 pound Sunline Sniper in a lot of these situations, but I always have Braid rigged up next to me. I think that you know, Fluorocarbon is not going to show up as much. The water's a little bit clear today. I think it gives me a little more of a natural presentation in a lot of these situations. I will get beat by the fish a couple of times when you're using that, but when you're talking about Sniper as a fishing line from Sunlines, it is just incredibly durable. It's going to allow you to horse a lot of fish out. I mean, you've seen me do it many, many times. Oh, yeah, there we go. Another fish that came with the jig kind of hanging out over the reeds the way he was right there. What a cool bite. That never gets old, especially when you hook them right like that. They eat your jig like that. Thump, thump. I love that bite. One of my favorites, always will be. Braided line has become more and more popular for all types of fishing applications in recent years. You know, the original braided line that people picked up, it was thick, it didn't cast very good. It was, you know, kind of great for dropping jigs in the grass, but there were some limitations. But as braided line has evolved, it's become more and more popular in so many applications. You know, using straight braid for any type of fishing application, you have less stretch. That's just an inherent thing that's built into it, and that comes with some advantages, like flipping grass. It's well known by a lot of people when you flip a jig or a Texas rig into grass and you're using fluorocarbon or monofilament, you might get a few more bites, but you're gonna lose them because those types of line, they ball up, the grass balls up onto the line where the bait is. Doesn't give you that instantaneous snap, instantaneous hook to move that fish off the bottom and out of that grass. And that braid will actually, in a lot of situations, eliminate the balling up. I'm not saying it takes it away totally, but it'll cut some of that grass as it's coming through just based on how it's built and how durable it is to allow you to be more successful in those type of applications. Come out there, buddy. That's how you flip one in right there. That's how you catch a big one right there. What a freaking stud right there of a bass that one was. The same scenario plays out with your braided line when you are fishing a frog out over, you know, heavy cover, through the grass, through the lily pads. When you get a bite, you need to be able to maintain instant contact with that fish. And Sunline has several braids specifically designed to help you as a topwater fisherman get that instant connection while making longer casts. There we go, darling. Thank you, fish.
Braided line isn't solely intended for use around thick cover with heavy pound tests. It can also be used as the main line on a spinning rod, paired with a fluorocarbon leader. Sunline offers a tapered fluorocarbon leader that provides a greater strength and is less visible to the fish.
With so many people using braid to a fluorocarbon leader, you've seen a lot of evolution, especially from Sunline. The Tepa leader is a leader that you can tie to your braid to your main line, whether you're using a bait caster or a fluorocarbon, and you've got the options. There's a couple different things you can do here. One end is going to be a heavier diameter, heavier pound test, for lack of a better word. The other end is going to be thinner. It's going to be less of a pound test. So you can take the big end and tie it braid to Flora to have, you know, a lot of power up there, still get the sensitivity, the action, the less visibility of having a thin leader on the other end, but you get that durability at your knot. Or you can flip that around. You can go light to light on the end of the braid where you tie your knot, and then you could have the big meaty end for those applications where your bait's going to be coming through, let's say docks or rocks or things that are going to be abrasive that could, you know, basically, you know, hinder the line's performance and possibly break you off. So when you use the Tepa leader, you've got a lot of different opportunities and usages just from that particular leader.
It's time now for our second break in the show. On the other side, we'll introduce you to a mainline braid from Sunline that is one of a kind. Keep it tuned here to find out more. Welcome back to this episode of the Bass Pro Shop's Fisherman's Handbook. As we continue to take a look at the various types of fishing lines offered by Sunline and how each one can help you land more fish, we'll introduce you to the All Might sinking braided line. The only sinking braided line on the market today, All Might reduces the drift and bow in your line. Its high specific gravity fiber in the core prevents the line from floating and improves manipulation of the lure by increasing its straightness. 50% heavier than other braided lines, Sunline All Might sinking braided line is available in two colors, olive and pink.
The advantages in my mind when using a sinking braid, you make a really long cast. You know, with the soft plastic, you're throwing a shaky head, you're throwing a Ned rig, you're throwing a Carolina rig, anything like that you make a long cast. With a sinking braid, the sensitivity is going to be greater because you're not going to have as much line on top to be able to, you know, distract or take away from that sensitivity into your hands to feel the bite. That's a good one too. I could feel that bait. A bunch of rocks down there. I could just feel it. As I was pulling it up, he went the other way with it. Oh, he took it down too. Look how fat that fish. That's fun. Healthy fish right there. Finally got to feel a little bit of tap, tap, tick, tick. And really just finally got to feel a little bit of tap, tap, tick, tick, pull. Got one tugging back. That was fun. That sinking braid, that theory just sure makes a lot of sense for this type of an application when you're a guy throwing a Nico rig, throwing a wacky worm, throwing a Ned rig, throwing a shaky head, whatever it may be. You know, less line on top, more sensitivity, less, you know, you're gonna be able to set the hook a little bit easier and a little bit faster. Another thing I think that a person is going to gain by using a sinking braided line in a lot of presentations, your line management's going to be a little better in the sense that when you make a long cast out there, the loop or the big bow in your line, you know, it's the line you're going to be more in contact. You think about it, that line is sinking like this versus staying on top and, you know, kind of following the bait down like that. So in theory, that's going to give you a better hook set, better sensitivity, which is going to allow you to, you know, hopefully put more fish in the boat.
Coming up next on this episode of the Bass Pro Shop's Fisherman's Handbook, we take a look at something new from Gamakatsu. This latest innovation boasts slicker performance and enhanced corrosion resistance. Stay tuned to learn more.
When you look at Gamakatsu, I mean, you can go, I don't know how many millions and millions and millions, probably into billions of hooks that they've made. And they make hooks of all different sizes for a lot of different applications, whether you're looking at saltwater applications, you're looking at freshwater applications, whatever it may be. And there are a lot of different sizes of each one of those hooks. And to the average person out there, they may not even think about why we need so many different sizes. Well, it's to get the best action out of the specific baits that you're gonna rig it on. You know, if you can take let's just use a hook and we'll say it's this big versus a hook this big, all right? Well, if we're using a small piece of plastic, that hook we're gonna rig on this size right here, automatically it's gonna have the same action as that bait here. So as you pitch those baits into a spot, you're gonna get much better action out of the hook that is designed and fits for that specific size. Conversely, as hooks have evolved, and especially when we start looking at the latest hooks that Gamakatsu has come out with, I mean, they're slicker and they're faster. I mean, when you touch these new nano-coated hooks, you're gonna immediately notice the difference. And I can sit here and say, man, I didn't, you know, you run your hand down a traditional hook, it feels great, it's gonna work, absolutely. But if you're looking as a tournament angler to get 1 or 2 extra fish in the boat, perhaps in a week of tournament fishing, it may be that fish you never really felt bite. And that nano-coated hook, I'm telling you, just run your fingers down it, you're immediately gonna notice the difference.
In the ever-evolving world of fishing tackle, Gamakatsu has once again raised the bar with their latest innovation, the Nano Alpha finish, representing a paradigm shift in hook performance. These hooks are a testament to Gamakatsu's commitment to excellence. The Nano Alpha hooks offer anglers a plethora of advantages, including slicker performance and enhanced corrosion resistance. Here are a few key features of the new Nano Alpha hook technology. First, 2 times slicker performance. The Nano Alpha hooks boast an exceptionally smooth surface, which increases penetration by 2 times over standard plated hooks. That allows these hooks to penetrate quicker and farther than standard finishes, delivering higher landing ratios for fish of all species. Second, 4 times better corrosion resistance. The Nano Alpha coating technology provides superior corrosion resistance over standard hook plating. This plating not only prolongs the life of the hooks, but also ensures they maintain their peak performance in both freshwater and saltwater environments. It prevents rust and corrosion 4 times better from developing on hooks, particularly on the points, which quickly dulls hooks. And third, affordable excellence. Gamakatsu understands the importance of delivering top-notch quality at competitive pricing, making this breakthrough technology much more accessible.
Some of the advantages of the new Gamakatsu Nano hook are it's slicker, it's going to be better corrosion resistant, and it's going to be sharper. All of those things are going to be key things to a fisherman, whether you're a saltwater angler or a freshwater angler. Just sharper and slicker are the 2 things that immediately come to my mind. How many times have you been out bass fishing and it's one of those days, especially early in the spring, where the fish are just kind of picking it up and you're pulling into them more than anything, and all of a sudden you kind of pick up your rod, the line's moving, and you got one. Well, if you've got a smoother, slicker, sharper hook in those cases, that may be enough to penetrate that mouth and get a good hook set, even when you can't catch up to him to really drive the hook in there. We've all been there where we're can't catch up to him, we're trying to set the hook. Well, if you've got a smoother, slicker, sharper hook, that's gonna help you there. For a saltwater guy, the corrosion resistance aspects, I mean, that's huge. I mean, you're living and dying in a saltwater environment all the time down there, and you don't want your hook getting rusted, you don't want that point getting dull. And the nano coating from the Gamakatsu is just all you got to do is go touch them, and you're immediately gonna figure out there is a difference to those hooks.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Bass Pro Shops Fisherman's Handbook. This has been a Caraco TV production.